the diplomatic meeting room buzzed, with nervous energy as representatives from 12 different species gathered around the circular table. Dr. Rachel Stone adjusted her tablet and glanced at her 6-year-old daughter Lily, who sat quietly in the corner with her coloring book. This was supposed to be a simple cultural exchange, nothing more than showing goodwill between the human colonies and their new alien neighbors. The Drakmori delegation had arrived 3 hours ago, their massive forms barely fitting through the station's enlarged doorways. These reptilian warriors stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating that gleamed like polished obsidian. Their leader, General Varrock, commanded respect through presence alone. His amber eyes swept the room constantly, as if looking for threats that might emerge from the shadows. "We have brought something special to share with your people," General Varrock announced, his voice carrying the weight of ceremony. "A symbol of our trust and our hopes for alliance between our worlds." Dr. Stone had read the preliminary reports. The Drakmori were a proud warrior culture, one that had dominated their sector of space for over 1,000 years. They valued strength above all else, and their military might was legendary. For them to offer any gesture of friendship was unprecedented. 2 Drakmori guards wheeled in a containment unit that hummed with energy fields. Through the transparent aluminum walls, something dark shifted and moved. The other alien representatives leaned forward with curiosity, while the human delegation exchanged uncertain glances. "Behold," General Varrock said, "a hatchling of the void dragons, our most sacred guardians." The containment field flickered off and gasps echoed through the room. Inside the unit crouched a creature the size of a large house cat, but there was nothing domestic about its appearance. Obsidian scales covered its body like natural armor, each one sharp enough to cut flesh. Its eyes glowed with an inner fire, and needle-sharp teeth protruded from its elongated snout. Small wings folded against its back, and its tail ended in a series of bone spikes. "This hatchling will grow to be 30 feet long," General Varrock explained with pride. "Adult void dragons can tear through starship hulls with their claws and breathe plasma hot enough to melt steel. They are the apex predators of our world, and they have served as our companions in battle for millennia." The Centauri ambassador shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "And you brought this creature here because?" "To show trust," General Varrock replied. "Among our people, sharing a dragon hatchling is the highest honor. We offer this gesture to prove our commitment to peace." Dr. Stone watched the creature with professional interest. Even as a hatchling, its movements spoke of deadly efficiency. Every muscle seemed coiled for action, every sense alert for danger. The other species representatives kept their distance, and she understood why. This was clearly a predator born and bred for violence. Lily looked up from her coloring book, her blue eyes widening with interest. "Mama, what's that?" "It's a baby dragon, sweetheart," Dr. Stone whispered. "Stay in your seat, okay?" The presentation continued as General Varrock explained dragon bonding rituals and their role in Drakmori society. The hatchling paced restlessly in its container, occasionally letting out small chirps that sounded more annoyed than threatening. Dr. Stone noticed that despite its fearsome appearance, the creature seemed nervous in the unfamiliar environment. Everything changed in an instant. A power fluctuation ran through the station systems, causing lights to flicker momentarily. The containment unit's energy field wavered, and in that split second the hatchling struck. Its claws raked across the weakened barrier, tearing through the energy matrix like tissue paper. Before anyone could react, the dragon burst free and darted toward the ventilation grate. Chaos erupted immediately. The Drakmori warriors roared commands in their native language while drawing weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Alien representatives scrambled for the exits, knocking over chairs and shouting in a dozen different tongues. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station. "Evacuation Protocol 7, General Varrock bellowed over the noise. "All personnel must clear sections 4 through 9 immediately." Dr. Stone grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the emergency exit. "We need to get to the safe zone, sweetheart." "But what about the baby dragon?" Lily asked, looking back over her shoulder. "The adults will handle it," Dr. Stone replied, though she could hear the uncertainty in her own voice. Security teams flooded the corridors, their boots pounding against the metal deck plating. Over the intercom system, the station commander's voice crackled with tension. "All civilians to emergency shelters. This is not a drill. Hostile creature loose in Section 7. General Varrock and his warriors moved with military precision, their heavy footsteps echoing through the hallways. Even a hatchling can kill dozens of trained soldiers, he warned the security chief. These creatures are born killers. There is no reasoning with them, no calming them down. We must corner it quickly before it adapts to the environment. The dragon had vanished into the station's maze of corridors and maintenance shafts. Security cameras tracked its movement sporadically, showing brief glimpses of obsidian scales and glowing eyes. Each sighting sent security teams rushing to new locations, always arriving moments too late. It's heading toward the civilian quarters, reported a technician monitoring the sensors. Dr. Stone felt her heart skip a beat. Families lived in that section, including children much younger than Lily. She had studied enough predator behavior to know that scared animals often attacked anything they perceived as a threat. The hunt continued for 20 minutes, with the dragon staying one step ahead of its pursuers. It seemed to understand the station's layout instinctively, using ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels to avoid capture. General Varrock's warnings echoed through the corridors as more security teams joined the search. Finally, thermal sensors detected the creature in Cargo Bay 12. Security teams surrounded the area while the Drakmori warriors prepared their capture equipment. Through the security cameras, they could see the hatchling huddled behind a stack of supply containers, its scales dark against the metal walls. Prepare for breach, General Varrock commanded. Remember, these creatures show no mercy. Approach with extreme caution. But as the security teams moved into position, a small figure slipped past the barricades and wandered into the cargo bay. Lily had gotten separated from her mother during the evacuation and had been following the sounds of the search. She walked into the cargo bay just as the frightened dragon, Hatchling, poked its head out from behind the containers, its glowing eyes wide with confusion and fear. Lily stood perfectly still in the cargo bay doorway, her small hands clutching a stuffed rabbit she had been carrying during the evacuation. The dragon hatchling crouched 20 feet away behind the supply containers, its obsidian scales catching the overhead lights like polished glass. Every adult in the area held their breath, waiting for violence to explode across the room. Instead, Lily tilted her head to one side and smiled. "Oh my goodness," she whispered, her voice carrying clearly in the silent bay. "You're the cutest little dragon I've ever seen." The hatchling froze mid-crouch, its glowing amber eyes fixed on the small human. Its needle-sharp teeth were still bared in a defensive snarl, but something in its posture shifted. The rigid tension in its muscles relaxed slightly, as if it were confused by the lack of fear in the child's voice. Through the security monitors, General Varrock and his warriors watched in stunned silence. Dr. Stone pressed against the barricade, her heart hammering against her ribs as she watched her daughter face down a creature that could tear her apart in seconds. "Lily, don't move," she called softly. "Just stay very still, sweetheart." But Lily was already moving. She crouched down to make herself smaller and less threatening, just as she had been taught to do with frightened animals at the petting zoo back on Earth. The dragon watched her every movement, its head tracking her like a predator following prey. "You're scared, aren't you?" Lily said in the gentle voice she used with hurt animals. "All those loud noises and bright lights must have been really scary. I get scared sometimes too." The hatchling's defensive posture wavered. It had been born with instincts for hunting and fighting, bred over countless generations to be the ultimate predator. But those same instincts were now telling it something unexpected. This tiny creature posed no threat. In fact, her calm presence seemed to radiate something the dragon had never experienced before. Genuine care without any desire to dominate or control. Lily pulled her stuffed rabbit closer and sat down cross-legged on the cold metal floor. "My name is Lily. What's your name?" "Oh wait, you probably don't understand me, do you?" "That's okay. We can still be friends." General Varrock's translator unit struggled to process the child's stream of gentle chatter. In Drakmori culture, strength and dominance were the only languages their dragons understood. Warriors earned their respect through demonstrations of power and fearlessness in battle. The concept of speaking to a dragon like it was a frightened child was completely foreign to his understanding. "This is impossible," he muttered to his second-in-command. "No creature approaches our dragons without proper dominance displays." The hatchling should have attacked by now, but the dragon was not attacking. Instead, it was slowly emerging from behind the containers, drawn by something in the child's voice that transcended species barriers. Its movements were cautious but no longer aggressive. The rigid spines along its back had lowered, and its tail was no longer thrashing with defensive fury. "You have such pretty scales," Lily continued, her voice full of genuine admiration. "They're all sparkly and dark like the night sky. And your eyes are so bright. They're like little golden stars." The security chief watched through his monitors with growing amazement. He had seen soldiers freeze with terror at the sight of much less dangerous creatures. This 6-year-old girl was treating one of the galaxy's most feared predators like a lost puppy. The dragon took another step forward, and then another. Its nostrils flared as it caught the child's scent, processing information that its limited experience could not interpret. There was no aggression in this human, no challenge to its dominance, no threat to its survival. Instead, there was something warm and welcoming that called to parts of its nature that even its Drakmori handlers had never accessed. "Are you hungry?" Lily asked, reaching into her pocket. "I have some crackers. Mama always packs snacks for me when we go on trips." She pulled out a small package and carefully opened it, setting a few crackers on the floor between them. "I don't know if dragons eat crackers, but you can try them if you want." The hatchling approached the offering with careful steps, its head lowered to sniff at the unfamiliar food. When it looked back up at Lily, something remarkable happened. The predatory gleam in its eyes had been replaced by curiosity and what almost looked like gratitude. Dr. Stone felt tears welling up in her eyes as she watched her daughter's natural empathy work its magic. Lily had always been special with animals, able to calm frightened cats and befriend the most skittish horses at their local stable. But this was beyond anything she had ever witnessed. "The child shows no fear," General Varrock observed, his voice heavy with disbelief. "In all our history, no one has ever approached a dragon without proper warrior training. How is this possible?" The dragon finished sniffing the crackers and then did something that made every Drakmori warrior in the area question everything they thought they knew about their sacred guardians. It lay down on the floor, folding its legs beneath its body in a position of complete trust, and gently nuzzled one of the crackers with its snout. Lily clapped her hands together with delight. "You do like them. That's wonderful. You're such a good dragon, yes you are." The hatchling's response was even more shocking. It began to make a sound that none of the Drakmori had ever heard from their dragons before, a soft rhythmic rumbling that almost sounded like contentment. Its eyes half closed and its tail began to sway gently back and forth. "Is it purring?" Dr. Stone asked in wonder. General Varrock had no answer. In all his years of dragon handling, he had never seen one of their war beasts display such behavior. Dragons bonded with their riders through mutual respect and shared combat experience. They were tools of war, bred for aggression and trained for obedience. They did not purr. They did not show affection to strangers. They certainly did not lay down in submission to a human child. "You're not scary at all, are you?" Lily said, scooting slightly closer. "You're just a baby who got lost and confused." "Poor little thing." The dragon lifted its head and looked directly into Lily's eyes. For a moment that stretched into eternity, two completely different species connected on a level that transcended biology, culture, and evolution. The child saw past the sharp teeth and armored scales to the frightened young creature beneath. The dragon saw past its own predatory instincts to recognize a source of warmth and acceptance it had never known existed. When the hatchling took one final step forward and gently bumped its snout against Lily's outstretched hand, the sound of collective gasps echoed through the security monitors. The most feared predator in known space had just chosen a 6-year-old human girl as its companion. "Well," Dr. Stone whispered, not sure whether to laugh or cry, "I guess we're going to need to have a very interesting conversation with the diplomatic corps." 2 hours later, the diplomatic crisis had reached levels that threatened to shut down the entire cultural exchange program. Lily sat in the station's medical bay while Dr. Foster ran routine scans. The dragon hatchling curled up on the examination table beside her like an oversized cat. Every time someone tried to separate them, the creature would become agitated and refuse to cooperate. "Mama, can we keep him?" Lily asked for the 15th time, gently stroking the dragon's scales. "He likes me and I like him. He's lonely without friends." Dr. Stone rubbed her temples, feeling a headache building behind her eyes. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple. He belongs to the Drakmori people, and he's going to grow up to be very, very big, bigger than our whole apartment. But we could get a bigger apartment, Lily insisted with the unshakable logic of childhood, and he could learn to be gentle. He's already being gentle with me. Through the medical bay's observation window, General Varrock paced back and forth like a caged animal. His massive form barely fit in the corridor and his amber eyes burned with frustration. 3 other Drakmori warriors flanked him, their ceremonial armor clanking with each step. This is unprecedented, he rumbled to Ambassador Martinez, the station's head diplomat. In 3,000 years of dragon bonding, no off-worlder has ever been chosen. The sacred bond cannot be broken once formed, but neither can it be permitted to continue with an untrained human child. Ambassador Martinez had been fielding emergency communications from a dozen different planetary governments for the past hour. General, with all due respect, your dragon seems perfectly content with the current arrangement. Perhaps we should consider this an opportunity rather than a crisis. You do not understand, General Varrock growled. This hatchling will grow to be a weapon of immense power. Without proper training in Drakmori warrior traditions, it will become uncontrollable. The child cannot possibly provide the discipline and combat conditioning that dragon bonding requires. Inside the medical bay, Lily had begun teaching the hatchling a simple game of peekaboo using her hands. Each time she revealed her face, the dragon would bob its head and make that strange purring sound. Its tail swished happily across the examination table, and its eyes tracked her movements with obvious affection. Dr. Stone watched in amazement as her daughter demonstrated a connection with the creature that seemed to bypass every known rule of xenobiology. How is she doing that? She asked Dr. Foster. According to everything we know about Drakmori dragons, they should only respond to displays of dominance and strength. Dr. Foster adjusted his scanner readings and shook his head. I'm seeing neural activity in both subjects that I've never encountered before. The dragon's brain patterns are showing responses in areas we associate with attachment and emotional bonding. It's as if Lily's presence is activating pathways that were dormant in its neurological structure. The door to the medical bay slid open, and General Varrock entered with his translator device humming. His enormous frame made the room feel suddenly cramped, and his presence should have terrified any normal creature. Instead, the dragon hatchling looked up at him with mild curiosity, before returning its attention to Lily. Hatchling, General Varrock commanded in his native language, his voice carrying the authority of centuries of dragon handler tradition. Come, return to your proper place. The dragon glanced at him again, then deliberately turned its back and snuggled closer to Lily. She giggled and wrapped her arms around its neck, causing it to purr even louder. General Varrock stared in disbelief. Impossible. Dragons do not ignore direct commands from qualified handlers. Maybe he doesn't want to leave his friend, Lily said, looking up at the towering warrior without a trace of fear. He's scared when you talk so loud. Animals don't like loud voices. It is not an animal, General Varrock corrected firmly. It is a sacred guardian, bred for war and trained for combat. Your species lacks the proper understanding of what this creature represents. Lily considered this seriously, her 6-year-old mind processing the concept. But he acts like an animal. He likes to be petted and he purrs when he's happy, and he gets scared when there are loud noises. Maybe he doesn't want to be a warrior. Maybe he just wants to be loved. The words hit General Varrock like a physical blow. In Drakmori culture, the concept of choice in one's life path was alien. Dragons were born to serve in battle, just as warriors were born to lead them. The idea that a dragon might prefer affection over glory was incomprehensible. Dr. Stone stepped forward carefully. General, I understand this situation is difficult for your people, but perhaps we could explore a compromise. What if Lily could visit the dragon regularly? She seems to have a calming influence on it. The bond has been formed, General Varrock said heavily. In our culture, this is sacred and cannot be undone, but neither can we allow an untrained human child to possess one of our most powerful weapons. I don't want him to be a weapon, Lily said softly. I want him to be my friend. Friends don't hurt people. They play games and share snacks and take care of each other. The dragon lifted its head and nuzzled against Lily's cheek, causing her to break into delighted laughter. The sound seemed to affect General Varrock profoundly. His translator unit picked up the emotional undertones in her voice. Pure joy, unconditional love, and complete trust. What is that sound? He asked, his voice unusually quiet. Laughter, Dr. Stone explained. It's how humans express happiness and affection. General Varrock had heard many sounds in his lifetime. The roar of dragons in battle, the clash of weapons in combat, the cries of victory and defeat. But he had never heard anything quite like a child's innocent laughter. It spoke of emotions that his warrior culture had no words for. The hatchling responds to this. Laughter? All young creatures respond to expressions of joy and love, Dr. Foster observed, studying his readings. It appears that Lily is accessing behavioral patterns in the dragon that may have been suppressed by traditional training methods. Lily had begun singing a simple song she had learned in school, something about friendship and sharing. The dragon listened intently, its head tilted to one side as if trying to understand the melody. When she finished, it attempted to mimic the sound, producing a series of musical chirps that were surprisingly melodious. "He's trying to sing with me," Lily exclaimed. "Did you hear that? He's so smart." General Varrock felt something shifting in his understanding of the universe. For 3 millennia, his people had bonded with dragons through strength and dominance. They had created the most powerful military force in known space by treating their guardians as living weapons. But watching this human child interact with the hatchling, he began to wonder if they had been missing something fundamental about the nature of the bond itself. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we should consult with the High Council about this matter. There are precedents that may apply to this unusual situation." Ambassador Martinez looked relieved. "That sounds like an excellent idea, General. In the meantime, perhaps the dragon could remain here under Dr. Stone's supervision." Lily looked up hopefully. "Does that mean he can stay with me?" "For now," General Varrock conceded, though his expression suggested he was questioning everything he had ever believed about dragon bonding. "But understand, young human, that this creature will grow to be larger than your dwelling places. The bond you have formed comes with responsibilities that you cannot yet comprehend. I'll take good care of him," Lily promised solemnly. "And I'll teach him to be good and kind and gentle. He'll be the best dragon ever, won't you, Spark?" "Spark?" General Varrock repeated. "That's his name," Lily announced confidently, "because he makes little sparks when he sneezes, and because he makes my heart feel all sparkly and happy." The dragon, now officially named Spark, sneezed on cue, producing a small puff of flame that would have terrified any rational being. Lily clapped her hands in delight and Spark preened under the attention. General Varrock realized that his entire worldview was about to undergo some very significant changes. 3 weeks had passed since the incident in the cargo bay, and the diplomatic station had transformed into an unexpected center of interspecies research. Dr. Stone found herself documenting behaviors that challenged decades of established xenobiological theory, while Lily continued her daily routine as if having a dragon companion was the most natural thing in the universe. The temporary quarters assigned to them had been modified with reinforced walls and expanded space to accommodate Spark, who had already grown noticeably larger. What amazed the researchers most was how naturally Lily adapted to his needs without any formal training. She seemed to understand instinctively when he was hungry, tired, or simply needed comfort. "Time for breakfast, Spark," Lily announced, carrying a bowl of the specially prepared meat mixture that the Drakmori nutritionists had provided. The dragon bounded toward her with obvious enthusiasm, his movements still puppy-like despite his increasingly formidable appearance. General Varrock observed from the viewing chamber, his massive frame hunched over a data tablet as he reviewed the daily reports. Each day brought new revelations that contradicted everything his people believed about dragon behavior. This hatchling was developing cognitive patterns that were unprecedented in their recorded history. "Explain to me again how the child knows when the dragon requires nourishment," he requested from Dr. Foster, who had become the unofficial liaison between the human and Drakmori research teams. "She reads his body language," Dr. Foster explained, highlighting sections on his scanner display. "When Spark is hungry, his posture changes subtly. His tail droops slightly and he tends to move closer to food preparation areas. Lily picks up on these cues automatically, even though she's never been trained to recognize them. Drakmori dragon handlers require years of study to learn such recognition patterns," General Varrock muttered. "How does a human child master them in weeks?" Through the observation window, they watched Lily demonstrate another remarkable ability. Spark had become agitated by the sound of construction work in the adjacent section, his scales bristling with defensive energy. Instead of attempting to restrain or command him, Lily simply sat down and began humming a soft melody. Within minutes, the dragon calmed and curled up beside her, his breathing returning to normal. Music appears to have a profound effect on dragon neural patterns, Dr. Foster noted. We've documented measurable changes in stress hormones when Lily sings to him. It's as if the melodic patterns trigger some kind of natural relaxation response. General Varrock's translator struggled with the concept. In Drakmori culture, dragons were calmed through demonstrations of dominance or combat exhaustion. The idea that gentle sounds could achieve the same result was revolutionary. We have never used music in dragon training, he admitted. Our methods focus on establishing hierarchy through strength and competition. Different doesn't mean wrong, Dr. Stone interjected, looking up from her own research notes. Maybe there are multiple ways to form bonds with these creatures. Lily's approach emphasizes emotional connection rather than dominance. The conversation was interrupted by excited chatter from the main observation area. A group of young aliens from various species had gathered to watch Lily's interaction with Spark. Their faces pressed against the viewing windows with obvious fascination. Among them was Kira, a Centauri child whose parents served in the diplomatic corps. Her species was known for their caution and analytical nature, traits that usually made them wary of unpredictable creatures. But she watched Spark with the same wonder that filled her human counterpart. "Can I meet the dragon?" Kira asked her mother in the whistling language of her people. "Absolutely not," Ambassador Kell replied firmly. "Those creatures are dangerous even when young. Human children may lack proper survival instincts, but we will not expose you to unnecessary risks." But Kira had noticed something that the adults missed. When Spark interacted with Lily, his entire demeanor changed. The predatory alertness that characterized his species was replaced by something gentler, more playful. She could see that he was choosing to be careful around his human friend, moderating his strength and keeping his claws retracted during their games. "He's not dangerous when he's with her," Kira observed with the clarity that only children possess. "He's like a big pet." Similar conversations were taking place throughout the station as young members of different species began to question their parents' warnings about the dragon. They could see what the adults often missed, that Spark's behavior around Lily was fundamentally different from his behavior around trained warriors or handlers. Dr. Stone had documented this phenomenon extensively in her reports. Spark exhibits what we might call social adaptability, she explained to the growing number of researchers who had requested access to her data. He modifies his behavior based on his perception of threat levels and social context. With Lily, he displays nurturing behaviors that we never see when he's with Drakmori handlers. Nurturing behaviors? General Varrock repeated the phrase carefully, as if testing unfamiliar words. "Watch this," Dr. Stone said, activating a recorded observation from the previous day. The recording showed Lily accidentally dropping her favorite toy, a small stuffed animal that rolled under a heavy storage unit. Before any adult could intervene, Spark had carefully used his claws to retrieve it, handling the delicate fabric with surprising gentleness. He then presented it to Lily with obvious pride, his tail wagging like an enormous dog. "The precision required for such delicate manipulation is remarkable," Dr. Foster commented. "He's actively choosing to be gentle, despite having natural weapons that could easily destroy the object." General Varrock studied the recording with growing amazement. In traditional Drakmori training, dragons learn to moderate their strength through repetitive combat exercises and harsh corrections. This hatchling was developing the same control through motivation and affection. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have been incomplete in our understanding of dragon nature." The breakthrough came during Lily's afternoon playtime. She had been teaching Spark simple games that required cooperation rather than competition. Today's activity involved building towers from soft blocks and then carefully knocking them down together. "Your turn, Spark," Lily said, placing a block on top of their construction. "But be gentle, okay? We want it to stay up until we're ready." Spark approached the tower with intense concentration, his movements deliberate and controlled. Using just the tip of his claw, he placed his block with surgical precision. When the tower remained standing, Lily cheered and clapped her hands, causing Spark to puff out his chest with obvious pride. "Magnificent," General Varrock whispered, his voice thick with emotion that his translator couldn't properly convey. The level of fine motor control, the understanding of cause and effect, the desire to please. "We have never developed these abilities in our training programs." Because your training programs focus on fighting, Dr. Stone observed gently. Lily's approach emphasizes creativity, problem-solving, and emotional intelligence. She's not trying to dominate Spark or prepare him for battle. She's helping him become a thinking, feeling individual. The implications of this realization began to dawn on General Varrock. For millennia, his people had bred dragons for war, selecting for aggression and obedience while suppressing traits that might make them less effective as weapons. But watching Spark's development under Lily's influence, he began to understand that they might have been sacrificing enormous potential in favor of narrow military utility. The child is teaching the dragon to think, he murmured, not just to react but to consider and choose. And he's teaching her too, Dr. Stone added, pointing to her daughter. Look at how her spatial awareness has improved, how she's learned to read nonverbal communication. They're growing together. As if to illustrate the point, Spark suddenly lifted his head and looked toward the corridor entrance. Seconds later, the door opened to admit a maintenance worker who had come to check the air recycling systems. Lily immediately understood the warning and moved to a safe distance, while Spark positioned himself protectively between her and the stranger. He's not being aggressive, Dr. Foster noted, studying his readings. He's being protective. There's a significant difference in the neural patterns. General Varrock felt something profound shifting in his understanding of what dragons could become. For the first time in his life, he began to wonder what his people might have lost in their single-minded focus on creating the perfect weapons of war. I must contact the High Council immediately, he announced. They need to witness this development firsthand. What we are seeing here may change the future of dragon bonding forever. The arrival of the Drekmori High Council ship sent shockwaves through the diplomatic station. The massive vessel, black as the void between stars and bristling with weapon arrays, dwarfed every other craft in the docking bay. Its very presence spoke of power that could reduce entire worlds to ash. Lily pressed her face against the observation window, watching the imposing ship with the fearless curiosity that had gotten her into this situation in the first place. Spark lay beside her, now nearly the size of a large pony, his growth accelerated by the rich diet and emotional stimulation of the past month. Are those the important dragon people coming to visit? She asked her mother. Dr. Stone felt her stomach clench with anxiety. Yes, sweetheart. They want to meet you and Spark. That's nice, Lily said simply. I hope they like the tricks we've been practicing. The innocence in her daughter's voice broke Dr. Stone's heart. Lily had no idea that the arriving delegation might separate her from Spark forever or worse. The messages from the Drekmori homeworld had been formal and ominous, speaking of ancient laws and sacred traditions that had been violated. General Varrock had grown increasingly tense as the council ship approached. He paced the corridors like a caged predator, his amber eyes burning with worry. You do not understand the gravity of this situation, he told Ambassador Martinez for the 12th time. High Counselor Thrak is the most traditional member of our ruling body. He views any deviation from ancient ways as heresy. But surely the evidence of Spark's development will speak for itself, Ambassador Martinez replied hopefully. The progress he's made under Lily's care is remarkable. Thrak will see only an abomination, General Varrock growled. A sacred dragon corrupted by alien influence. He has already declared that both the child and the dragon must face trial by combat to prove their worthiness. Dr. Stone felt the blood drain from her face. Combat, she's 6 years old. Drekmori law is absolute, General Varrock said heavily. But there is one provision that might save them. The trial can be one of understanding rather than physical combat. If the Council agrees that wisdom matters more than strength in this case. The High Council delegation arrived in the station's main conference chamber like a force of nature. 3 enormous Drekmori warriors entered first, their ceremonial armor gleaming with precious metals and battle honors. Behind them came High Counselor Thrak himself, a figure so imposing that even General Varrock seemed small by comparison. Thrak stood nearly 9 feet tall, his natural armor plating scarred by countless battles. His eyes were the color of molten gold, and they fixed on Lily with the intensity of a predator evaluating prey. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia of tradition. So this is the human whelp who dares to corrupt our sacred guardians. Lily looked up at him without fear, though she had to crane her neck to meet his gaze. Hello, she said politely. Are you here to meet Spark? He's been very good and he's learned lots of new things. Thrak's expression darkened. The creature has a name? This is worse than I was told. Of course he has a name, Lily replied with the logic of childhood. Everyone has a name. It's not polite to call people it or creature. Spark is a person too, just a different kind of person. The High Counselor's translator unit struggled with the concept. In Drakmori culture, dragons were tools, weapons, property. They were not individuals with rights or recognition. The idea that this human child viewed a dragon as an equal was incomprehensible. You will be silent while I explain the law, Thrak commanded. The sacred bond between dragon and rider is the foundation of our civilization. It cannot be permitted to continue with an untrained alien who knows nothing of our ways. Dr. Stone stepped forward protectively. With respect, High Counselor, my daughter has shown remarkable ability in caring for Spark. Perhaps we could demonstrate silence. Thrak roared, his voice echoing through the chamber. The law is clear. The bond must be proven through trial, or both the false rider and the corrupted dragon will be destroyed. Lily's eyes widened with alarm, not at the threat to herself, but at the danger to her friend. You can't hurt Spark. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's just a baby. It is no longer a proper dragon, Thrak declared. It has been made weak by your alien influences. A true dragon knows only strength and obedience. Spark isn't weak, Lily protested, her voice rising with indignation. He's smart and kind and brave. He protects me from loud noises and scary things. That's not weakness, that's being a good friend. General Varrock cleared his throat carefully. High Counselor, there is precedent for a trial of understanding rather than combat. If the child can demonstrate true comprehension of the dragon bond, the law allows for exceptions. Thrak's golden eyes narrowed. What manner of trial could possibly prove that this alien understands our sacred traditions? The maze of bonding, General Varrock suggested. It has been used in disputed cases before. If the child and dragon can navigate the challenges together, it would prove that their bond has merit. Dr. Stone felt her heart racing. What kind of challenges? The maze tests both the intelligence of the dragon and the wisdom of the rider, General Varrock explained. It requires perfect coordination, trust, and understanding between bonded pairs. Many trained Drakmori warriors fail the test. Thrak considered this proposal with obvious reluctance. Very well. But understand that failure means death for both participants. There can be no mercy if they prove unworthy. Lily looked up at her mother with determination beyond her years. I want to do it, Mama. Spark and I can do anything together. The preparation chamber adjoining the maze was filled with monitoring equipment and observation screens. The Drakmori had constructed their test facility according to ancient specifications, creating a complex network of passages and challenges that would push both dragon and rider to their limits. Remember, General Varrock told Lily as technicians attached harmless monitoring devices to both her and Spark, the maze will test your ability to work together. Trust your instincts and trust your dragon. Lily nodded seriously, then turned to Spark and wrapped her arms around his neck. Are you ready for an adventure? She whispered. We're going to show them how amazing you are. Spark responded with a gentle rumble of contentment, his golden eyes reflecting complete confidence in his human companion. To him, this was just another game they would play together. High Counselor Thrak observed the preparations with skeptical eyes. The child shows no proper fear, he commented to his aide. She does not understand the magnitude of what she faces. Perhaps, General Varrock replied quietly. Fear is not always necessary for courage. The massive doors to the maze of bonding ground open with mechanical precision, revealing a passage that disappeared into shadowy depths. Ancient symbols carved into the walls pulsed with soft light, and the air itself seemed to hum with energy. Lily took Spark's claw in her small hand and smiled up at him. Come on, buddy. Let's go show them what real friendship looks like. Together, they stepped into the maze, ready to prove that love and understanding could triumph over centuries of tradition and the rigid demands of ancient law. The maze of bonding stretched before them like a living entity, its walls shifting with patterns of light that seemed to respond to their presence. Lily and Spark moved forward hand in claw, their footsteps echoing in the ancient corridors while the High Council watched through monitoring devices that had recorded countless trials over the millennia. First challenge approaching, General Varrock announced from the observation chamber. The pit of trust. The passage opened into a circular room with a deep chasm cutting across their path. On the far side, A narrow ledge led to the next section of the maze. Traditional dragon riders would command their mounts to fly across while demonstrating their dominance through aggressive posturing and loud commands. Lily studied the gap thoughtfully, then looked up at Spark. "Can you fly across with me?" Spark spread his wings, which had grown considerably in recent weeks but were still too small for sustained flight. He could probably manage a short glide, but carrying Lily would be risky. Instead of attempting the obvious solution, he moved to the edge of the pit and began examining the walls with careful attention. "What are you looking for, buddy?" Lily asked, crouching beside him. Spark pointed with his claw toward a series of metal handholds embedded in the wall, an alternate route that most riders never notice because they were focused on demonstrating aerial dominance. These handholds formed a path that would allow them to climb down and across rather than flying over. "You found a different way," Lily exclaimed with delight. "That's so smart." High Counselor Thrak frowned at the monitors. "The creature is avoiding the proper challenge. This shows weakness and lack of courage. Or it shows creative problem-solving," Dr. Stone countered. "They're finding a solution that plays to their combined strengths rather than following predetermined expectations." Working together, Lily and Spark navigated the handhold path with careful coordination. Spark used his natural agility to test each grip point, while Lily followed behind, trusting his assessment completely. When they reached a section where the handholds were too far apart for her small arms, Spark positioned himself as a living bridge, allowing her to step safely from one point to the next. "Perfect teamwork," General Varrock murmured with obvious admiration. "They are treating this as a collaborative effort rather than a display of individual dominance." The second challenge presented them with the Chamber of Echoes, where multiple passages branched off in different directions. Each passage contained different sensory stimuli designed to confuse and disorient. Traditional riders would force their dragons to choose through trial and error, accepting mistakes as part of the learning process. Lily and Spark approached the choice differently. They stood at the entrance to each passage, and Lily watched Spark's reactions carefully. His enhanced senses could detect subtle differences in air currents, temperature, and sound that would indicate the correct path. "That one makes you nervous," she observed when Spark's scales bristled slightly at one entrance. "And that one smells funny to you, doesn't it?" Spark nodded, then moved toward a third passage that seemed to appeal to his instincts. Lily followed without question, trusting his judgment completely. Their choice led them directly to the next section without a single wrong turn. "Impossible," Thrak growled. "The chamber is designed to require multiple attempts. How did they navigate it perfectly on the first try?" "They communicated," Dr. Stone explained. Lily read Spark's nonverbal cues and trusted his superior senses. She didn't need to dominate him to benefit from his abilities. The third challenge was the wall of coordination, where rider and dragon had to work together to manipulate a complex mechanical puzzle. Ancient symbols had to be pressed in the correct sequence, but some were positioned too high for humans to reach, while others were too low for dragons to access comfortably. Lily studied the symbols carefully, her young mind working to identify patterns. "It's like a song," she said suddenly. "Look, Spark, the symbols are arranged like musical notes. We need to play them in order from low to high." She pointed to the lowest symbol, which Spark pressed with his claw, producing a deep, resonant tone. Lily reached for the next symbol in the sequence, her small hands able to activate mechanisms designed for more delicate manipulation. Together they worked their way through the musical puzzle, each taking turns based on their individual capabilities. The melody that emerged was hauntingly beautiful, an ancient Drakmori composition that spoke of harmony between different forces. As the final note echoed through the chamber, hidden doorways opened to reveal the maze's final section. "The Song of Unity," General Varrock whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "It has not been played in the maze for over 2 centuries. Most modern riders lack the patience for such delicate work. Because they're focused on proving dominance rather than achieving harmony," Dr. Stone observed. "Lily and Spark are demonstrating a completely different philosophy of partnership." The final challenge was the Circle of Truth, where the bond between dragon and rider would be tested at its most fundamental level. The circular chamber contained no obvious puzzles or obstacles. Instead, it was designed to reveal the true nature of the relationship between the two participants. Ancient Drakmori technology filled the room with energy fields that would amplify and display the emotional connection between bonded pairs. Strong warrior bonds typically showed as patterns of mutual respect and shared aggression. Weak or false bonds would create chaotic, unstable displays that proved the relationship's inadequacy. Lily and Spark entered the circle holding hands, their steps perfectly synchronized after weeks of growing together. As the energy fields activated, the monitoring screens throughout the observation area blazed with unprecedented readings. By the ancient fires, Thrak breathed, staring at displays that showed patterns unlike anything in recorded Drakmori history. The energy patterns swirling around Lily and Spark were not the rigid geometric forms typical of warrior bonds. Instead, they created flowing organic shapes that pulsed with warmth and mutual affection. The displays showed perfect emotional synchronization. When Lily felt joy, Spark's patterns brightened. When Spark experienced curiosity, Lily's readings shifted to match. This is not dominance, General Varrock realized aloud. This is true partnership. They have achieved something our culture has never seen, a bond based on love rather than conquest. In the center of the circle, Lily began to sing the simple friendship song she had taught Spark weeks ago. His voice joined hers in harmonious counterpoint, their combined melody creating resonances that made the ancient chamber itself seem to sing along. The energy displays reached levels that the monitoring equipment had never been designed to measure. High Counselor Thrak stood frozen, watching patterns that challenged everything he had believed about dragon bonding. The readings showed not just a successful partnership, but a relationship that transcended the traditional limitations of their oldest traditions. "The trial is complete," he announced, his voice barely above a whisper. "They have succeeded." The doors to the Circle of Truth opened, and Lily and Spark emerged to find the entire observation deck filled with beings from a dozen different species. Word of the trial had spread throughout the station, and representatives from across the galaxy had come to witness this unprecedented moment. "Did we do good?" Lily asked, looking up at the towering High Counselor with the same fearless friendliness she showed everyone. Thrak stared down at the small human child who had just shattered 3 millennia of established tradition. "You have done something remarkable, young one. You have shown us possibilities we never imagined existed." General Varrock stepped forward, his amber eyes bright with unshed tears. "The High Council will need to convene immediately. What we have witnessed today will change our entire approach to dragon bonding. Your methods, this emphasis on emotional connection and mutual respect, must be studied and integrated into our training programs." Dr. Stone felt overwhelming relief wash over her. "What does this mean for Lily and Spark?" "It means," Thrak said slowly, "that we have much to learn from your species. We propose a formal alliance, a cultural exchange that will benefit both our peoples. Your daughter will be welcome on our homeworld as the first human dragon rider, and our young dragons will learn alongside human children to develop bonds based on love rather than fear." Lily looked up at Spark, whose scales were practically glowing with happiness. "Did you hear that, buddy? We get to keep being friends forever." Spark's response was a joyful trumpeting call that echoed through the station's corridors, followed immediately by the happy laughter of his human companion. The sound seemed to break down invisible barriers throughout the diplomatic facility, as representatives from different species began approaching each other with new curiosity rather than suspicion. Ambassador Martinez watched the scene with wonder. "I think we're witnessing the beginning of a new era in interspecies relations." He was right. Within months, the Lily Protocol had become the standard for introducing human children to alien species throughout the galaxy. The simple truth that she had demonstrated, that love and understanding could bridge any gap, spread from world to world like wildfire. The Drakmori established the first integrated dragon bonding schools, where children from multiple species learned together. Other warrior cultures began questioning their own traditions, wondering what they might have lost in their focus on strength over compassion. Years later, as Lily rode Spark through the crystal canyons of the Drakmori homeworld, she would often think about that first day in the cargo bay. She had not set out to change the galaxy. She had simply seen a frightened baby dragon and wanted to be his friend. But sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes of all. And sometimes a 6-year-old girl calling a dragon cute is exactly what the universe needs to remember that love is the most powerful force in existence. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.